So we just will
Perfect.
continue. What makes us different and unique from all competitors is the fact that we could be deployed in many different ways. We could be deployed as a set of extensions right into your Magento environment. And once again, I'm happy to have a conversation, have a purely technical session with your technical team to show you exactly how it's done, maybe show you a couple of examples. But as your platform evolves and perhaps your multi-vendor, your third-party vendor products become more prominent in your sales channels, and you decide to, for instance, launch a microservice for your specifically marketplace or for your dropshipping program, we could be easily deployed as such as well. 99% of the source code is open and available to you. The 1% that is not open, it's our licensing system. So that puts you in control of literally your vendor experiences, your customer experiences, complete control over the system. You own 100% of your data. We do not get to access your data, your business data, your top sellers or anything like this. Your sellers are exclusively yours. So we're not a network of sellers like some of our competitors. So your data, your business data will not be used for any sort of analytics reports or intelligence reports, anything like this. So most of our clients, all of our clients really appreciate the fact that they not only legally own the data, but it's not shared with anyone. Our licensing is flat rate, it's predictable. And for these reasons, along with the fact that we're the most robust solution on the market, that makes us highly competitive. I already talked about various architectural options as far as deployment, but as far as the feature set, and we're gonna visit some of them today. It's a complete A to Z, soup to nuts, so to speak, complete package that gives you the complete functionality. At the core of the system is a multi-vendor catalog manager. We provide for a variety of ways for your sellers, third-party sellers. Here it says vendor, seller, merchant, whichever terminology you choose to use. We provide them for many different ways to feed products into your system. There's a vendor portal, which I'll show you in a couple of minutes, but there's also the ability to feed data through CSV, XML. Let's say if they operate other websites, let's say Shopify is a popular site in the US, they could plug in their Shopify credentials and we could automatically pull their product data.
Perfect.
Automatically, yeah. And we could synchronize their products and inventory and even orders as well. Same is true for some other major platforms. There's a configurable product approval workflow. So when the vendor uploads the product or creates a product, there's
we
a
can approve or not.
Exactly, yep. If at some point you decide to use a PIM, product information management system, we could support some of these, such as Akinio, PIMcore, or some other ones at a later date. You could have multiple sellers of the same SKU, which I don't believe would be the case with you, but nevertheless, it's still a possibility. And although you could have multiple warehouses fulfilling the order based on geolocation, but we could cover that in a moment.
Okay.
You could also, we have a feature, I'm not sure if it would be helpful to you, but you could actually take your product catalog, or let's say manufacturer's product catalog, and upload it into the system, controlling the listings, the product data, and then you could expose it to your product vendors so they could only assign their pricing or inventory. Let's say for a major brand product. You could have vendor geofencing. So for a single SKU, or it doesn't need to be for a SKU, just general vendor. Let's say certain vendors' products are only available in certain states. If you ever want to get into the alcohol, wine, as an example, some sellers to distributors only can sell in California or New Jersey or whatnot. So their products would only be shown or fulfilled to the customers in the area where they could ship to or where they're authorized to sell. And or you could have a dealer of the same product. Let's say you have some major brand product, and then you have dealers of those products that are responsible for certain areas as well for fulfillment. We could support that as well. If you have multiple sellers of the same product, you could display prices right on the product page. Otherwise, you could just display seller information right on the product page. There's a vendor selector logic where and by the way, the same applies to a warehouse, so to fulfillment center selection. So yeah, we could automatically assign, or rather I should say dispatch the order for fulfillment based on some rules. If you're dealing with multiple warehouses, one or more, we could dispatch it to the proper warehouse based on rules or geolocation or distance, geo-proximity or availability. But sometimes sellers, third-party sellers, they have multiple warehouses as well, and they have multiple fulfillment centers, 3PL centers. So they could manage their inventory locations right in the seller portal, and we could dispatch the order to the right location. The benefit of it would be, obviously, you want to get the product to the customer as soon as possible and as cheaply as possible. So that's really the benefit of it. So there are rule sets that could manage, not necessarily, but they could manage, if you choose to enable this functionality, how to dispatch to the proper vendor or to the vendor location. When it comes to the checkout, we use standard Magento checkout, but you could display the seller information right at the checkout page, while grouping products by seller and displaying. Every seller could have their own shipping methods and shipping service levels. We also support buy online, pick up in store, or buy online, pick up some sort of like from pickup locations. The benefit of it is that it's the buyer is buying in a single transaction from multiple locations, and they could choose various shipping service levels per product or per seller. And naturally, I saw that one of your requirements is to display estimated time of arrival. That is supported as well, obviously, depending on the carrier, right at checkout. For sure. Very, very convenient way to check out from multiple sellers in a single transaction. Great. If at some point you decide to get into more of a B2B transactions, we can support them as well with RFQs and negotiable quotes. Let's say from like restaurant orders or from event orders or anything like this. We do have a number of clients that are in the food business, retail business, food and wine business, I should say, where there are B2B features for wholesale bulk orders that are very helpful. But when it comes to the order fulfillment, as you could see on the right side, there's a sales order. That's your standard Magento sales order. The customer places an order, let's say for 5 products. The customer doesn't really know or even care that these products come from various locations, from various vendors. And to the customer, it's a sales order. But what we do is we actually generate what we call a purchase order, which is a derivative of the sales order. So the sales order stays the same, it's a Magento sales order, but we introduce a new entity called the purchase order, where the purchase order is vendor specific. So the purchase order would only have the item for vendor A, B, C, etc. And this purchase order will be delivered to the vendor in the way that's configured for the vendor. And this information will flow back to the sales order, so that the vendor A would only fulfill their portion of the order without even knowing, being aware that there are other items on the order.
Exactly. Excuse me, Felix. I have a question about the API integration because from what I know, let's say every specific vendor may have its own API interface. Okay, so the integration through API means that there will be someone who of your team or whoever that will specifically develop the interface to talk with that specific vendor, or means that Unity has a tool or something like that that will allow us to write some API call for the vendor on the other side?
So we have an interface, API interface, REST API, but we also have GraphQL, which has similar functionality. So essentially, it allows the vendors to update orders or to pull orders or to update the inventory or to feed their products. And we have documentation for this. It's quite extensive. So the vendor would be using this API.
That's clear. That's clear.
So essentially, it's going to be your API, right? Your system's API for your vendors to communicate. But we also have pre-built integrations, API integrations, such as for Shopify.
Okay, exactly. So there is a subset of pre-built API interface like Shopify or ShipStation, like those kind of software or platform. Plus, we have a native API that our vendor can call to get or pull the orders.
Exactly.
Yep. Okay.
Yep, perfect. So let's move on. There's order consolidation with pick and pack. So essentially, we could consolidate orders for the vendor or for warehouse location or for vendor's warehouse location into a certain format and deliver, let's say, Excel file at the end of the day and deliver them to the predetermined location while generating shipping labels, packing slips, invoices if necessary. We could also go as far as generating pick lists for the warehouse and deliver it to the vendor, deliver it to the proper warehouse location. So the orders could be dispatched to the vendors one by one in real time, or consolidated and all the paperwork, pick lists generated automatically. We also have vendor microsites that you could choose to use potentially, where the microsite, essentially it's a Magento page that automatically displays products from the vendor or information about that vendor, or if it's an artisan, maybe information about the producer, or you could also allow the vendor to manage some information right from the seller portal, but otherwise it's an integrated page. And we have multi-vendor returns and exchanges, pardon me. Naturally, whenever there are sales, there are returns, but our RMA functionality accounts for the multi-vendor returns, where the product would be returned back to the vendor or back to the designated return warehouse. But more importantly, the return or exchange would be reconciled financially into the vendor payouts. So you would be never paying to a vendor for something that was returned or exchanged. And there's also a way to generate the return shipping labels. There's a way to automatically track these returns right from the Magento admin, and the seller is able to see that as well. It's a very useful feature. When it comes to financial workflow, we support the two models: the aggregator model, where the payment would be cleared by you into your account, and then at the later point you would be paying your vendors. But we also support the payment split model, where the payment could be automatically split at the point of checkout. So you get your platform fee or your commission or your product margin, and the vendors get their percentage of the sale based on the configuration right at checkout. Obviously, with aggregator model, you're the merchant of record. With the payment split model, the vendor is the merchant of record. So there are some payment industry related compliance that needs to be accounted here based on certain local laws, so to speak. But nevertheless, no matter which method you use, we would always be reconciling transactions and figuring out, calculating the amount owed to the vendor. doesn't really matter if you pay them right away or pay them to them later.
Okay, great.
We have multi-party financial attribution. In other words, if there's more than one vendor involved in the fulfillment of a single item, you could assign financial, let's say, commissions or certain fees accordingly. You could have local admins, et cetera, et cetera. So that's also available.
So for instance, we can say, okay, from this total, from the total amount of the transaction, the shipping cost should be charged to us, the cost of the item to the vendor, or so, I mean, we can set those rules also for the attribution on every part of the order, right?
Absolutely, yeah. And you could also have, let's say, if it's an order in California, there's a special handling fee.
Okay, that's
something like that. Which brings me to the next slide, and I'm almost done with this deck before taking you to the product itself. But there's a vendor statement and transaction reconciliation feature, which is absolutely loved by all of our clients because it automatically reconciles all transactions in real time, where the result is the vendor statement that is available to the vendors in the seller portal or as a report, where every transaction, commissions, handling fees, shipping, taxes, exchanges, returns, you name it, essentially is calculated, reconciled. And as far as you're concerned, this information is available to be exported or automatically integrated into your accounting system or your ERP system on a line item basis or as a lump sum. And vendors know exactly what they're getting paid for and when and for what. And there are a lot of different features, settings that control how this reconciliation is done globally or on a per vendor basis as well. So let's say if for some vendors you collect tax or you want to handle shipping by yourself and you want to retain shipping for let's say you use shipping as a profit center, you could configure the vendor statement to act as such for vendor A, but for vendor B, you want to pay them the shipping amount. So there's a lot of granular control over on a per vendor basis.
Great.
There's a financial suite. There are a lot of reports. There are dashboards, all the standard third-party vendor logistics and third-party vendor business intelligence that is usually found in such systems. One item I want to point out to is the vendor ratings. Essentially, it's a system that automatically calculates vendor performance based on KPIs. And I'm happy to show you a couple of examples where you assign a score, or rather the system assigns a score to the vendor based on the number of sales, the number of returns, and the profitability, or there are a lot of different KPIs, and the result is that you know exactly how every vendor is doing. If some vendors are falling behind, you can tell them, hey, you could see right away, you can tell them, hey, you're underperforming. These are the areas you need to improve upon. And actually, you know who your best vendors are. When it comes to administration and governance, all processes could run fully automatically without any human involvement. But if you want some human interaction by your administrator when processing orders or processing returns, it's also available. We've been doing this for a very long time on Magento, and the system is highly scalable. We can handle literally millions of SKUs. It's built for performance. It's highly reliable. So you'd be in good hands with us. The rest of it, this presentation is more marketing, but I'd rather focus on the product itself. So I'm going to take a pause as I switch screens and see if you have any questions.
That's fine for me.
Okay, perfect. So next, what I would like to do is I would like to show you Magento admin and
perfect.
Show you a couple of items where we would be how the system works. Just bear with me for one moment. As I log in, there you go. Let me start sharing my screen again. So naturally, this is the Magento admin. This is
Mhm.
the view of the operator. I'm gonna show you a couple of items. So first, let's talk about orders. So when it comes to the orders, this is just like I said, your standard Magento
Mhm.
order that gets placed by the customer. But this is for every product, this is where we come in. There's a vendor associated with the product, right? And the system, what it does, and by the way, if you have more than one vendor or more than one location of the vendor, you can reassign that fulfillment of the product to a different vendor or to a different location.
Mhm.
Say if you sold a gift basket as an example,
Mhm.
from vendor Lampedy, and all of a sudden they don't have it in stock, but there's another vendor that does, and your customer says, go ahead, you can just assign it to a different vendor. Simple as that. And just like I mentioned to you, the system generates purchase orders, one purchase order per vendor, and every vendor could have their own shipping methods, and the vendor would only get notification for their portion of the order. Right. And just for clarity, vendors do not access the Magento admin. This is the operator's
Yeah,
view.
yeah,
See if
clear.
it's eligible. Yeah,
They will have their own portal. That's another, okay.
yeah, which I'll show you in a moment. Generally, what I wanted to talk about is some vendor settings. I'm gonna have a number of vendors set up in the sandbox. Let me open one up, and I'll quickly go through some major features. Feel free to stop me at any moment and ask questions.
Mhm.
So you could have vendor groups. I don't have any group set up here. The vendor group is a easy way to group vendors into certain groups and assign certain certain
Rule or
I want to say certain settings to them, so that when
Mhm.
you onboard new vendors, you can assign the group, let's say,
and they take all the settings from
yeah,
the other vendors. Just another question. For instance, vendor group or also vendor name can be used with the native core of Magento for instance, for the product cart, for the shopping cart price rules, for promo code or coupons.
yes,
I mean,
yes,
those attributes will be 100% compatible with the others of Magento, and they can be used to any rule for upsell, cross-sell.
yes. We're going to talk about cross-sell and upsell in a moment, but
Okay.
the promotion rules. But to answer your question, the vendor groups could be part of the catalog price rules or cart
Perfect.
price rules as
Great.
well.
Great.
Another use for the vendor group is you could actually have a feature called vendor membership, where you could actually, I don't know if you want to sell it, potentially you could. Some of our clients do sell. They have fees like annual or monthly fees to sell on the platform. It could be tied to a group, a silver, gold, platinum, and various settings or benefits or limitations could be assigned to those groups. For instance, silver sells 100 items, but gold has unlimited items, and silver pays 20% commission, but gold pays 5% commission, something along those lines. And there's a recurring billing that's part of it as well. It's called vendor membership. Every seller could have their own preferred carriers, and we support all types of shipping methods and shipping options, from live rates to flat rates to geographical rates, et cetera, et cetera.
And for instance, if I select UPS, may I be able to only let available for the customer, let's say the next day and the second day, and to completely hide the ground shipping, for instance?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, sorry, I'm going too fast.
These are very good questions. So I went into the settings for various service levels. So you can enable, so essentially, when it comes to shipping, and shipping is a big topic overall, you could enable service levels per vendor. And you could, there are two levels here. The level number one is what the customer pays. what is actually displayed to the customer. If you choose to have the customer pay for shipping, that's one level. The level number two is what you pay to the vendor, right? Or what it actually costs you. So some of our clients, they use shipping as a profit center where they actually upsell shipping to their sellers, and they actually make decent profit on shipping. But you could also pass through shipping from your sellers, from the customers to the sellers. So there are two separate structures here. But to answer your question, yes, you could have, let's say UPS assigned for ground shipping, and you could have FedEx assigned for second day shipping. And it could be transparent to the customer or not. It's up to you. But it's a big topic, shipping, that would need to be unpacked.
Yeah, I imagine it need to be fully.
Yep. Just moving on, the sellers could enter a vacation mode. Let's say they're not able to ship during some holidays, and the system would automatically update the product lead time right on the product page, or the products could be temporarily removed. And you could allow the sellers to manage these vacation modes. Sellers could be featured, meaning that you could promote them in searches. You could promote, if you choose to sell banners on your category pages or on home pages, they could be linked to featured sellers as well. The sellers could have one or more location of their inventory, I already mentioned to you, and they could manage these locations, and the system would pick the right location based on the priority or based on rules. And just moving on, when it comes to integrations with the vendors, you see there's this concept of adapters. The adapter, essentially, it's a method that the system uses to communicate with the vendor when it comes to products, inventory, orders, and returns, et cetera, et cetera. And the adapter, we have a number of pre-configured adapters, such as Shopify that I already mentioned to you. Or if you're looking to have a custom adapter made, let's say you have a vendor, they have either API, some funky API, or if they have they need to get your orders in certain format, let's say in a CSV format or Excel format, and it must be in certain format, you could configure a custom adapter, which is quite easy, by the way, and schedule it here and tell the system us where to place that file and when and how. And there are adapters that govern order export, in other words, sending orders to the vendors, order import, in other words, getting order statuses and tracking numbers from the vendors, and also inventory synchronization, etc. And when it comes to the integration, we could send the vendors all types of notifications on a per order basis or on a per dispatch basis. You could actually check inventory prior to sending the order to the vendor. And earlier mentioned to you, the inventory could be checked locally, but sometimes some of our clients, they want to check the inventory at the warehouse, at the vendor's warehouse, prior to confirming the order. So we do have that functionality as well, if necessary. But generally, we could notify, we could generate a lot of different paperwork as necessary, packing slips, invoices, and on and on. You could have minimum order quantity per seller. Some sellers, they don't want to get an order unless it's a certain amount. You could assign handling fees. The handling fee could be a percentage or a fixed amount. And you could assign sellers to only specific countries or specific, in the context of the US, specific zip codes, and their products would only be shown in these locations.
Sorry, Felix, a question about the limit for zip code. If we set it, then there will be a warning at the checkout once the customer has insert its address, shipping address, right? Or, okay, you can show us.
Let me show you. There is a client.
Okay.
So you could actually, let's say in New York, if we know the customer's address, where if it's given at some point, we could only display the products that these flower shops are only available in this case in New York. But if we, let's say if we do Los Angeles 90210, a completely different set of flowers and flower shops would be displayed. So there are multiple ways how this could be handled. It could be if we know that the customer is shopping from certain area, we would only display that area. And you could use geo proximity or geolocation, which unless completely specified is not, might be accurate to a degree, but perhaps not. Or if the location is not known at checkout, we might just say, hey, this product isn't available in your area, and handle it gracefully. Obviously, for the authenticated users or authenticated shoppers, we already know where they're shipping to, so it's not
exactly. That's exactly what I was thinking, because I'm not sure, probably not, we won't have the zip code checker at the beginning of our process, but yes, we can add for sure information on the product page, but then we would need at least a warning and an information box at the checkout if that inform the customer that that specific item is not available in its shipping address. Then, of course, the more logged user we have, the more we can inform them already before the process.
Yes, but we could also deploy geolocation. I'm just thinking about other clients, how we use it, because if the customer isn't using a VPN, geolocation is pretty accurate, right? So we know in some location, and we can use that. Yeah, so that would cover probably 99% of your
of the cases. Yes. Okay.
Moving on. When it comes to the microsites, you could have specific subdomains for the microsites. Just trying to see what else I should cover. The vendor statement that I mentioned a few minutes ago has a lot of granular settings that would allow you to, let's say, whether or not you want to include shipping and the vendor payout, or if you want to retain it to yourself, and include, exclude, etc. Similarly, let's say if there's a discount or coupon that the vendor creates, whether or not you want this discount to be affecting your commission or your monetization. So, and how do you handle taxes, whether or not you include it in the payout or not. So there's a lot of settings that govern transaction reconciliation. And when it comes to payouts, paying to the vendor, so I already mentioned to you that the vendor statement itself, these settings, they will calculate how much money is owed to the vendor and when it's payable, etc. But this information could be exported out of the system, but you could also use one of the methods that's you could pay them online, the vendors online if necessary, or you could just export this information into your payment system.
Okay.
There's also, when it comes to monetization, you could charge commission per category, per vendor, per product. The commission could be percentage, it could be a flat rate, it could be a tiered rate. You could assess all types of fees, handling fees, logistical fees, and whatnot.
Sorry, Felix, if we don't have a fixed fee for the commission of the vendor, but we have a cost for a different cost for every item, is there the opportunity to set up also this? So for instance, every item, depending on the cost, will have a different margin.
Yes, absolutely. So let me quickly go to the product catalog, and it would make sense here. So let me open one item. So there's a couple of ways to monetize. You don't have to use commissions. There's something called product. So this is vendor specific data as it relates to this product. And you see there's product cost and there's product price. So if you use product cost, this is what you'll be paying to your vendor. But your product price could be anything. You could assign whatever price. You could upsell 25%, 100%, whatever. But if you keep this open and you set the price, then this is going to be actually the selling price, but commission will be taken from this price. So you could have either one or the other, and it could be on a per vendor basis as well. So it does not need to be global.
Okay, perfect.
Okay. There's a lot more that's available here, but I want to take you to the vendor portal, show you what the vendors can do. So I'm gonna stop sharing. I'm gonna log out and take you to the vendor portal. All right, so let me start sharing again. So this is the vendor portal. Before I log in, what I'd like to convey to you is that this is a demonstration of the functionality. The look and feel of it would be customized to your unique branding needs. So the vendor portal, it's also Magento. It's a separate interface for your vendors. Before logging in, you could have your vendors register. There's a vendor registration. Let's say if someone wants to sell on your platform, you could have them fill out a form, or it could be a wizard. All of the elements that you will be collecting from them is customizable by you, and there's a approval workflow that would automatically allow you to review the application, approve the seller, or to request more information.
And can we also skip this process and create the username on behalf of our vendors and already provide them with an account?
Yes, absolutely. You don't have to have this. Okay. You could create your vendors right from the admin, or you could also import your sellers with a file, with the vendor import utility.
Okay.
So this is the vendor portal. Once again, think of it as just a functional representation. It's not styled at all. So it's responsive though, and it would automatically adapt to any device. So the purchase orders that I mentioned a few minutes ago are delivered as orders for the vendors. And it's a very simple interface, so the vendors know what to ship, who to ship it to. If they have a question, they could communicate with you. They could change the status of the order. They could confirm the order. They could automatically create shipping labels. They know what they're getting paid for. They could process these orders one by one or in bulk. They could download all of this information, update statuses in bulk, etc. Obviously, we mentioned Shopify or some other integrations. So if integration is enabled, all of this information would automatically flow to these.
To the customer. To the vendor platform.
Yeah, whenever there are sales, there are returns. The returns that are vendor specific would be delivered to the vendor for processing here as well. They could, if there's some sort of a dispute, they could handle a dispute here. Otherwise, it would be automatically reconciled. You could allow the vendors to create coupons and promotions. By the way, all of this is optional. You don't need to.
Yeah, understood. We won't allow the vendors to create their coupon on their own. Not at the beginning, at least.
Yeah, but nevertheless, this is something that is available.
Yeah, it may be useful later. Yeah, for sure.
You could allow your sellers to communicate with the shoppers, and this communication could start right from the product page, and the questions are delivered to the seller portal. There's a moderation workflow built in that you could filter questions and answers, or your administrator could step in and respond. This is a very useful engagement tool that increases conversion. Very, very useful. Questions could be asked right from the product page or from the customer dashboard of Magento. Naturally, products could be created right in the vendor portal manually, or they could be uploaded. If it's manually, it's essentially the way the system works is it would automatically create sort of like a form for the vendor to fill out, and every category could have its own set of product attributes that need to be filled out. Some product attribute values could be required. Some of them could be optional. The vendors could, so essentially, so these structures are managed or created by you, by the operator at the beginning, at implementation. And for certain products, you might say, you know what, I want products with options, like various sizes, or, you know, configurable sets, gift baskets, or whatnot. And the system would then display the proper form, the appropriate form for the vendor to fill out based on the category of the product that the vendor is creating. So this is a manual process, but which is not used by most vendors, obviously for small vendors, or if they need to create a quick product. But there's also a way for them to automatically upload their files in a similar fashion. They would have a chance to map, if you want to be able to allow them to map their file to your product, to your file structure. Or you could have a single predetermined file formats. In other words, rather than creating all products manually, they could just upload 1,000 products right away. Naturally, with integrations, all of this product information would flow into the system. So what happens when the product is created by the seller? Two things happen, essentially. There's a data integrity check. You want to make sure you're getting the right data, right? So for the price, you're getting the proper value. But there's also a security check. We want to make sure there's no SQL injection or any sort of attack, hacking happening. So that's part of it. And then there's a product approval workflow that kicks in. You could mark some vendors as automatically approve some sellers' products, but some sellers' products that are not marked as such would require you to write a Magento admin to review the product and to approve it or to request more info. You could allow the sellers to manage their accounts, everything from their password to their preferred carriers. They could enter their vacation mode. They could add one or more shipping warehouses. They could, if you're choosing to pay them online, they could manage their payout information, be it PayPal or whatnot, bank account information. If you have microsites, you can allow them to manage content of that microsite. And you could allow them to view reports. There's a lot of different reports that is available to the vendors. If they need to quickly update inventory or quickly update pricing or product cost, they could do that as well. And the one thing that I'm not able to show you here is the vendor dashboard. I just don't have it configured in the sandbox, but essentially it's the first page that the vendors will see when they log in, where you'll display certain KPIs, best sellers, et cetera, et cetera. So this is the vendor portal. In a nutshell. Any questions about the vendor portal?
Yeah, if you can enter inside the order, I just want to be sure we are also able to, you know, for instance, we don't want to show the email, the customer email and the customer phone to the vendor in order, you know, to don't provide marketing data to them. I see that the email is already hide hidden, but is there a way also to, for instance, hide the
Yes, absolutely.
number?
Yeah,
okay,
absolutely.
Now the other, it seems quite clear to me. I don't know if Claudio or Virginia or Isotta have any questions about.
No, Salva, I don't.
Okay.
So I know you shared some questions with me, some areas. I'm happy to go through them and perhaps I guess if you share the requirements, I should say, rather than the questions.
Yeah. I share the requirements, but looking at your demo, it seems that all the requirements are met, and also even more than just our requirements. So basically, in this page, they will have also the button to ship an order without moving to the UPS or FedEx platform, manually create the tracking link, and then report it on Magento. It will be easy to ship the order from here just by clicking one button, right? They just need to, partial availability means they are able to edit the actually quantity ship.
Correct. So, yeah, so there's a way to ship order in more than one shipment because of availability or for other reasons. And all of it will be reflected in the Magento sales order. Moreover, all of it will be reflected in the vendor statement and the vendor payout, and also the payment from the customer. So it will be captured accordingly. And if your credit card payment provides for partial capture, it could be done in batches, or the payment could be captured at the end once all shipments are a part of it. But as far as the shipping labels, so yes, you can allow the vendor to create shipping labels, to manage shipping labels right here. But the system could also create shipping labels automatically. And allow the vendor to download these shipping labels. See, they could create shipping, generate labels. But also, once again, the system can automatically generate it for them and just download it. They can download it, print it, and if they're using warehouse management system as an example, we could even generate it as a not as a PDF, but also as a thermal printer format for their.
Okay, perfect. And we can they can download from here, or receiving it as an attachment from an email or whatever.
Correct. Yes. The benefit of having the system automatically generate the label or generate it right here is because the tracking number will be automatically attached to the order, and it's just easier, less steps. But
if the tracking link is generated automatically, and then the vendor fulfilled the order and discover that they have two packages and not just one, they still be able to edit this tracking link to print a new label, or in that case?
Correct. Yes, they could come back here, generate additional labels.
An additional label, or they create a new one with two packages instead of one.
Correct. Yep. And also there's a way to designate, let's say, if you have an item that requires two shipping labels because it ships in two packages, that is also available. So on the per item level.
Great. Okay, of course, this is strictly related with the vendor portal. Of course, if we have an integration, we will be able to push the order or show some API in order so that the vendor can pull the order in automatically, and then they will update all the information through their own platform. They don't need to use the vendor platform at all.
Correct. So everything that's available in the vendor portal is available through integrations, APIs, or GraphQL.
And regarding the preset of API interface, are you able to share a list? You talk about Shopify, but are you able to share a list of the let's say the integration already featured in Unity?
Yes, I'm happy to share that, but it's generally it's big. I shouldn't say big. The most popular ones. There's BigCommerce. There's obviously Magento. Is a popular one as well. There's SAP and Oracle, and a couple. There's, I think, Channel Advisor. There's a number of them which I'm happy to share with you.
So just to, for instance, if one of our vendor has its own solution made of Magento plus ShipStation, okay, we will be able to both send the order to Magento or also to ShipStation, right? We can choose, because both the platform will be able to receive order from an external, from Unity, let's say. right? Is this right?
So ShipStation itself, I'll need to check depending on how it's used. If it's used to generate shipping labels, it's one thing. If it's used more as an order management system, that's a different thing. So I'm gonna have to get back to you.
Okay.
But generally for Magento, we could integrate the order into their Magento store, which by extension is integrated with ShipStation, and they'll fulfill it in ShipStation, and information will flow back into their Magento, which will flow back into your platform.
Exactly. Okay,
So
so
we might-
we can connect, let's say, directly. We can choose depending on the platform if and the vendor environment, if we need to integrate directly with their e-commerce or with their EDI or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Okay,
exactly.
okay, understood. That's all for me, Felix. I don't have any other question right now. And if you can just share these records, so I will share it internally. And if there is any other further question after I share the demo, I will come back to you. And in general, I will come back to you really soon to understand how we want to proceed. Okay.
Yes, absolutely. Happy to answer any questions. What might be also helpful for your tech team is if there's questions about deployment, potential impact of the database, do let us know. We're happy to have a detailed technical dive into the system and show you
Perfect.
exactly
This could be a nice opportunity.
Yes, Felix, that's what I wanted to say. I mean, unfortunately, our tech lead wasn't able to join this call. So for sure, the record will be very useful. But then if, I don't know if Salva, you think this will be enough, or if we need something more technical to understand all the possibilities we have for the integrations, for the concerning, I don't know, the...
Well, I mean, on my side, on the tech side, I just want more curious about the impact of that enterprise solution may have on our Magento, and in general, I understand is similar to a third-party plugin, but developed by Unity, right, Felix? So the impact is relatively, I can say, is not. We are not touching the core of Magento, and for me is enough. But for sure, maybe some additional question may come from our developers team.
Yes, absolutely. Looking forward to having that conversation as well.
Yes. Okay. So to close the circle, Virginia, we share this internally. Maybe we will have a regroup internally to dig in any technical question, and maybe we will do another check with Felix then.
Yeah, Felix, will you share also the presentation you were showing us?
Yes, absolutely. I'll make sure.
Okay, thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Okay, that's fine for me.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for taking the time today. I hope it was useful and informative.
Really useful, really useful.
Yeah, great. I'm looking forward to the next steps.
Thank you, Felix. I hope to talk to you soon.
Thank you, Felix.
Thank you.
Have a nice
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Be well. Bye-bye.